I was going to talk about the NCAA, but I actually want, since you're retired now and you're a longtime college football reporter, I want your perspective on this, because I got to tell you, I believe Caleb Williams and USC, obviously, they pulled a Florida against Tennessee in 96, where they built a big lead on Colorado and almost let them back in the game in last Saturday. I got to tell you, I believe in what Deion Sanders is doing in Colorado, but I am frustrated by overreactions on both sides. So what I mean by that is Deion's 3-0 start is to be commended. The Vegas set the over-under at 3.5 at Colorado. Then you had people like Skip Bayless pick Colorado to beat Oregon, which anybody who knew a lick about college football knew that Colorado wasn't going to beat Oregon. Yeah. And yeah. Now you have people acting like Deion Sanders has been exposed as some sort of fraud for losing 2 games to top 10 teams. Who's annoying you? Who is annoying you more? People who thought that Colorado was a contender, or people that think Deion Sanders is now underachieving because they reset expectations because of the 3-0 start?
I'm going to go with the latter. Those that think he's underachieving. Just because you came out hot, you probably caught a couple of teams off guard, right? Because Colorado was 1-11, a lot of whole new different players, and some really good players like Travis Hunter, like Sanders. So you brought in a collection of some really star-powered players. But here was my concern. Colorado at the line of scrimmage is not very good, offense or defense. They're not. And they're not going to win a whole lot more games. But they got this great start. They were the talk of college football. I give them a lot of credit for what they did. I haven't looked at their schedule, but if I had to pick right now, I think they'll be hard-pressed to go better than 6-6. So look, remember, they were 1-11, and he completely changed 95% of the roster, I think, changed. There were a few holdovers. So I think what he's done is very good. He's going to recruit well out there. People know him. They want to play for him. The mamas want their sons to go play for him. So while I think Colorado is going to get it handed to him by several other teams because they're not any good at the line of scrimmage, I still think this turnaround has been pretty remarkable for Deion Sanders.
That's where I am. And it's going to be annoying when they go 6-6 and then people lose all perspective because they had this false hope after a 3-0 start, not realizing that you're right. They caught some teams off guard and they're really undermanned right now. I mean, Vince Lombardi couldn't take this team better than 8-4 probably. And so
no, and they lost Travis Hunter. They've had some injuries to some key players, and also other teams. And we've touched on this. Other teams have had a chance to scout them a little bit and see what they're about. This is what you do. But one reason I thought Oregon would blow them out is the line of scrimmage. I did not think that Colorado could block Oregon. That Oregon was going to put all kind of pressure on Sanders. Southern Cal doesn't have a good defense. Now I'm surprised that it got to 48-41, something like that. And Southern Cal led 34-7, and they were blowing them out, and then Colorado rallied. But Southern Cal doesn't have a good defense. So that kind of helped. I don't know how much USC took their foot off the pedal. I didn't see the game, but I was surprised that it ended up being a 7-point game.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I always felt like offensively, Josh Heupel and Lincoln Riley almost run the same offense with the wide splits and things like that. But the difference is I think Josh Heupel doesn't just throw defense out the window. And I think Lincoln Riley cares absolutely nothing about defense whatsoever.
He wants to get the ball back.
Yeah. He's the Mike D'Antoni.
So I can go score again.
Exactly. Yeah. He's the Mike D'Antoni of college football.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
And so, yeah, and that's where I am. And so, as a guy who covered the sport for a long time, do you think long-term somebody like Deion is good for the sport, good for college football, Colorado?
I think so. Let me say this, though. I was bothered a little bit that he turned the roster over like that because I think a lot of the players that he ran off did not find a home and didn't have a scholarship anywhere. I'm not a fan of that. I understood it, but I still didn't really like it. It wasn't. And I'm not saying some of them shouldn't have been run off if they weren't given the effort or whatever, but I didn't care that much for that. But I've got to admire what he's been able to do at Colorado, the belief that he's instilled in them, the confidence he's instilled in them. He's got the fan base believing. And so overall, yes, I think he's been good for college football.
I'm with you on that. And I actually am 100% with you. I didn't like the running off players. I think in this era with the level of pressure that's on coaches and things like that, I think that given player power. I think a lot of people didn't realize that the power you're giving them with the transfer portal and NIL, you're also giving coaches power now to run off players more than they used to be able to.
Yeah, that's true. And then their excuse is, well, I can go get this guy in the transfer portal and he can play for me right away. And that guy's better than the one I just had. So I'm gonna clear out. You won't see that kind of turnover typically with a coach that's been in a program for several years. That most of that you see early. Even with Josh Heupel, I mean, he took a lot of transfers early, in part because he lost 40-something players that could have been on the roster. But he took a lot early. And as you're seeing with Tennessee more recently, I think they're going to have maybe 4 to 6 transfers a year, not get into double figures like they did the first year under Heupel. So I think that's the trend that we're going to see. And Clemson won't take any, right?
That's true.
Which that's going to be, that might be Dabo Swinney's downfall.
Oh yeah, not taking transfers and publicly complaining about NIL money too is. I mean, I think that. Look, in Tennessee, I think you and I both know, and Dave and I have talked about this. This is why the South Carolina win was so big. Tennessee needs Clemson to fall off, and they need to pounce on South Carolina because I think it's hard for Tennessee to be a powerhouse if they can't recruit South Carolina. It's a big, important state for them to be able to recruit talent-wise.
It is. And if you look at, I think I'm right about this, the 1998 team, the national championship team, I think their starting front four were all from South Carolina.
Yeah, they were. Darwin Walker, Billy Ratliff, Sean Ellis, and Jeff Coleman, I believe.
Coleman. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And then later, Albert Haynesworth came from South Carolina. After that, which had to be one of the most fun people to cover.
He was when he wasn't carrying around one of those big rods. Chasing after players at practice with that rod. But yeah. Well, and Albert was a tremendous player. He was not as productive as he could have or should have been. But boy, he had some years with the Titans where he was one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL.
Oh, he did. I was a fan. It seemed like he was super nice, so you had to get him to get mean. But then once you got him mean, he took it to a way too mean level and a little too far, and he couldn't get that balance right. I feel like.
Yeah, that's true. And but as far as the talent, I mean, he was 6'6", he was over 300 pounds. He moved very well. He was quick. He had great hands. He had a lot of the skill set that you would want to be a great defensive lineman in the NFL. And for a number of years, he was.
He was.